What is the goal of every investor? To create wealth. And how to create wealth? By investing in companies with consistent track record, a high brand value, and a bright future. So if I ask you, what are the most valuable brands in the world? Let me show you Forbes' latest list of world's most valuable brand in 2020. The number one brand is Apple with a brand value of $241.2 billion. It is followed with Google with a brand value of $207.5 billion. Third position is of Microsoft with a brand value of $162.9 billion. It is followed with Amazon and Facebook with a respective brand value of $135.4 billion and $70.3 billion. So if I ask you, what is the common thing among all these companies? The answer is, they are all technology companies. Can you figure out anything else which is common among them? They are all US based companies. Now if I ask you, as an Indian investor, how can you invest in these top companies? In this video, I am going to discuss 6 mutual funds which can help you invest in these top companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, etc. Hi, my name is Sahil and this is my Personal Finance Academy where I explain everything about money management in layman's language. Before we get into the details of funds which can help you invest in Apple, Facebook, Amazon, etc., let's quickly look at the 5-year returns of these top 5 companies. Apple share has jumped from the level of 115 in August 2015 to current level of 425, giving a return of 265% in last 5 years. Microsoft share price has jumped from the level of 46 in August 2015 to current level of 205, giving a return of 345% in last 5 years. Google share price has jumped from the level of 664 in August 2015 to current level of 1427, giving a return of 124% in last 5 years. Amazon share price has jumped from the level of 522 in August 2015 to current level of 3164, giving a return of whooping 506% in last 5 years. Facebook share price has jumped from the level of 94 in August 2015 to current level of 253, giving a return of 169% in last 5 years. Not only this, when you invest in US based companies, you also get the benefit of US dollar appreciation against the Indian rupee. So if you compare the US dollar to Indian rupee price in last 5 years, USD has jumped from level of 64 in 2015 to current level of 75. That's a rise of 17%. So if you don't do anything and just keep money in US dollars, then also you will see the rise in your investment value. Hence, as an Indian investor, you get double advantage of return from the stock as well as the dollar appreciation. On top of this, it helps in diversification. When you invest a portion of your money in global companies, you get the global exposure and it hedges your investment against the volatility of Indian market. Now let's discuss the 6 funds which can help you invest in the top US companies. So the first fund is Parikh Long-Term Equity Fund. This fund falls in the category of multi-cap fund. If you look at the expense ratio, it is 1.1%. The fund size is 3,513 crore and the 1-year return is 19.6%. Please note that this return is as of 31st July 2020. Now let's look at the foreign equity holding. So Parikh Long-Term Equity Fund has got 28.9% exposure in foreign equities. Rest of the exposure is in Indian equities. Now let's look at the breakup of foreign equities. So the top allocation is in Amazon with 8.8% allocation. This is followed with Google, which has got an allocation of 7.9%. Please note that here the investment is in the parent company of Google, which is your Alphabet. Third company is Facebook with a percent allocation of 5.9%, and the fourth company is Microsoft with a percent allocation of 2.1%. So you can see that Parikh Long-Term Equity Fund has got a good exposure in the top companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google and Microsoft. Now let's discuss fund number 2, which is your Axis Growth Opportunity Fund Direct Growth. This fund falls in the category of large and mid cap fund. The expense ratio is very low, it is just 0.46%. If you look at the fund size, it is 1,174 crore. If you look at the 1-year return, it is 8.36%. Please note that the last 1-year return of Nifty 50 is just 1%. whereas this fund has given 8.36% return. And the major reason is it has got exposure in US based equities, which has done considerably well in last 1 year. So let's look at the foreign equity holding of Axis Growth Opportunity Fund. It has got an exposure of 24.09% in foreign equities, out of which Amazon has got 1.48% allocation, Google has got 1.24% allocation, Facebook has got 1.09% allocation, Microsoft has got 1.61% allocation. Please note that the top holding of this fund is in Indian companies. The holding in Amazon, Google, Facebook and Microsoft is around 5 to 6%, and rest of the global equity exposure is in companies like Visa, Adobe, Procter & Gamble, Intuit, etc. Again note that the 1 year returns are as of 31st July 2020. Now let's look at the third fund, which is your Motilal Oswal S&P 500 Direct Growth. So if we talk about the category of this fund, it falls under index fund category. So this is not an active fund, it is an index fund where this fund simply replicates the S&P 500 of the US, that is your top 500 companies of the US. If you look at the expense ratio, it is 0.49%. If you look at the fund size, it is 264 crore. If you look at the 1 year return, it is not applicable, and the reason is it is a relatively new fund. It was launched in April 2020. Now let's look at the foreign equity holding. So this fund has got 98.8% allocation in the US based companies, and it makes sense because it replicates the S&P 500 of the US. Now let's look at the percentage holding of the top companies. So Microsoft has got a percentage allocation of 5.89%. Apple has got a percentage allocation of 5.77%. Amazon has got a percentage allocation of 4.39%. Google has got a percentage allocation of 3.24%. And finally, Facebook has got a percentage allocation of 2.08%. Now let's discuss the fourth fund in the category. So the fourth fund is Motilal Oswal Nasdaq 100. If you look at the category, it is a ETF fund. Please note that ETF funds are similar to your index fund, but they are traded like a stock. So if you want to invest in Motilal Oswal Nasdaq 100, you would need a trading account and a demat account. So basically this fund replicates the Nasdaq 100 funds, which means it replicates the top 100 funds of the US stock market. If you look at its expense ratio, it is just 0.54%. If you look at the fund size, it is 1090 crores. If you look at the 1 year return, it is 46.68%. I know this is crazy. Where the Nifty is giving as low as 1% return in last 1 year, this fund is giving as high as 46% return. So let's look at the foreign equity holding of this fund. So this fund invests 98.8% of the money in the foreign equity. What are the top companies? Let's look at it. So the top holding is in Apple, which enjoys an allocation of 12.19%. Next top holding is in Microsoft with a percentage allocation of 11.7%. Third, you have Amazon with percentage allocation of 10.39%. Then you have Facebook with 4.12% allocation. And finally, you have Google with 7.84% allocation. Fifth option to invest in top US companies is ICICI Prudential US Bluechip Equity Fund Direct Growth. If you look at the category, it falls under global fund category. If you look at the expense ratio, it is on the higher side with 1.68% expense ratio. If you look at the fund size, it is 691 crore rupees. If you look at the 1 year return, it is given 21% return in last 1 year. Now let's look at the foreign equity holding. So ICICI Prudential US Bluechip Fund has invested 94.57% of the money in US equities. Now let's look at the allocation in the top companies. So Amazon has got 4.0% allocation in ICICI Prudential US Bluechip Fund. Next is Microsoft with allocation of 2.08%. Third is Google with a percentage allocation of 1.44%. And it is followed with Facebook with a percentage allocation of 1.43%. Now let's discuss the sixth and the final option to invest in the US economy. So the sixth option is Nippon India US Equity Opportunity Fund Direct Growth. If you look at the category, it falls under global fund category. If you look at the expense ratio, it is 1.5%. The fund size is 145 crore. If you look at the 1 year return, it has given 22.38% return in last 1 year. Please note that the returns are as of 31st July 2020. And if you look at the foreign equity holding, this fund has invested 92.87% in foreign equities. And if you look at the allocation in top companies, Microsoft has allocation of 6.48%. This is followed with Amazon with a percentage allocation of 5.7%. Then you have Facebook with a percentage allocation of 5.58%. And finally you have Google with a percentage allocation of 4.53%. So in this video we discussed how to invest in top companies of the world like Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple and Google. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to this channel. Also let me know which financial topic you want me to cover in the future. And if you need personalized help, you can reach out to me. The details are given in the description box.